So, did I call it or did I call it? People are just baffled that this is occurring. See this line here? That's why it's occurring. You told a group of people who had overwhelming evidence of election fraud that you wouldn't listen to them, it was impossible. And they said, look, they're going to do this again in Georgia. And you said, no, they won't. And then they did, and then you guys did nothing. And then suddenly you're surprised that these people have, disrupted the Capitol. Why are you surprised? Why is anyone surprised? Other than you're just not paying attention. You can't take away somebody's right to vote and then not expect them to take alternative action. That's what they're going to do. That is the natural progression of things. Now, some people are saying, "Oh, well, it's bait. They want to take away your right to vote and all these other things, the right to protest and all that, because they want to bait you into doing some violent stuff or illegal stuff, and then when that happens, then they win." Sure, maybe. I ain't gonna be doing that stuff. But what am I gonna say to somebody who goes and does it? You guys aren't following the rules. I mean, it was a clown show what was occurring in the Senate, particularly with the objections. They were like, "Can we present evidence of fraud and do an investigation?" No. Well, then we can't certify this election. Yeah, no, we're going to. Okay. You guys can pretend to drag that out for a day or however long it takes, but what did you expect the people outside to do? I mean, people, it's they just, they stormed in the Capitol. They got inside. Okay. I think the only person who seems to have gotten hurt was some girl apparently got shot in the throat through a door or something. I don't know what happened. It was by police, so I don't know. Oh no, do we have to burn down the city now because somebody was killed by a police officer? Or shot, I should say. Of course not. That's not how they operate. But this right here, you told those people that you would investigate the fraud, that the election was going to have some sort of integrity, and then you told them to their face that you had integrity, and then you let that happen. And then after that happened, you said, no, we're not even going to investigate what you guys were complaining about. It's over. Go home. Well, if their vote's not going to count, they're going to go do something like what you're seeing. What do you guys expect? Well, what does anyone expect? That's how this works. This isn't a I think what's so baffling to me is that, do these people have any idea what it takes to get the right, be it the Trump right or the Christian right or the conservative right or the milquetoast right? Do you have any idea the level of I've never seen it in my lifetime that causes those people to go out and protest, and then on top of that actually take what would be illegal action? Do you have any idea the level of betrayal and anger there must be to trigger something like that? The left, somebody gets shot by a police officer after having, trying to kidnap some children, and they'll go out there because somebody was the wrong color. They'll protest anything. They'll protest. They want to abort children. They'll protest. Banning enemy countries from having immigration and stuff into here. They'll say that's racist or something. They'll protest Donald Trump's tweets because he's a mean pussy grabber or something. Anything. They'll get out there. They'll march for anything. And they'll use almost any excuse to riot. We saw what happened this summer. And they just were out there, Antifa, BLM, and they just destroyed and rioted. And we were just told, oh, they're mostly peaceful. It's okay. The right, the worst the right had was they showed up and they basically, they did sit-ins at some of the capitals because they were upset about the lockdowns. And then what happened? They got called domestic terrorists, and then the lockdowns continued. Some states got the message, you know. I mean, thank God for places like Florida. But those people were mocked and ridiculed, and they said, "Oh, you can't do that. You can't do. You're not allowed to do civil disobedience. You're not allowed to protest. You're not allowed to even pretend that you're, you know, threatening in any matter. And but these other people who are actually out there hurting people, no, they're fine. They're righteously angry over racial, social, whatever issue. And if you even show up to protest, you're a fascist, white supremacist, whatever. Now, there is some question about some of the people who went into the Capitol. Were they Antifa? Were they actually white supremacists? I don't know. I don't care. I just don't care anymore. Why should I care? Why should I care? If the left isn't going to be taking responsibility for the people who do far worse things than just getting some selfies on the podium, you know, at the speaker's podium, if the left doesn't have to take responsibility for that, then why should Trump supporters have to take responsibility for those people? Why? Those people they're as legitimate in terms of basically a form of government as those people who were in the chamber an hour before pushing through a sham election with sham electoral college votes. I saw Pat Toomey up there. Pat Toomey's Pennsylvania's senator, one of them, and he was up there saying that, well, you know, as the federal government, what are we going to do? Tell the states how they're supposed to run their elections? Like, he was so condescending, and he's doing that while his own state legislator is protesting the electors that were forced through, literally sending their stuff saying, these are Trump electors we're sending because this was stolen and these things were not, that basically this wasn't legitimate. And basically, if they're not going to do a full investigation, then we're going to say, look, you can't have all these illegal votes in, and we're going to award our votes to Trump. Electoral college votes. And Pat Toomey apparently is unaware of that. It's not that he's unaware of that. He knows that. And he's got the nerve to then stand up there and act like he's got no idea why people are so upset. That's treachery. I mean, it's a joke at that point. It's a charade. He has no more legitimate right to basically espouse about the Electoral College than these people who happen to have actually, been protesting outside or happen to actually breach the building. It's the same charade. I mean, yeah, not every elected official was acting in bad faith, no, but enough of them were where if the outcome was going to be the same, what's the difference? If you guys are going to allow illegality to dictate, but you're going to put pomp and circumstance in front of it, and then you're going to use that to select the president, what's the difference between these people coming in and saying, no, you're not counting? They have the same right. You can't just say, we're going to do something illegal, but we're going to do it in a manner in which we're not held responsible, and then be mad at people who do something illegal to disrupt your illegal proceeding. What is your argument? What is your argument? Your argument will have to be the delusional. Oh, there was no fraud, and the other sort. Okay, fine. You're not paying attention. I keep seeing people say, "Oh, there are white supremacists out there." Not that many people. You couldn't get enough white supremacists to fill a stadium, let alone the number of people who were out there, and they were not white supremacists. We know these people. We've seen these people. You've locked them down for a year. You've mocked them. You've ridiculed them. You've taken their livelihoods. You've taken their jobs. You've called them every name under the book, and then when they voted to push back, you took their vote from them. And then when they said, "We have evidence. Here's the vote. Here's how the vote was stolen," you guys said, "No, we're not going to do anything about it." The fact they were even patient to that point, you guys should be by the grace of God, because that's faith in the system that nobody else would have had the patience for. It's like someone has broke into your house and killed your dog, and then you go to the police and you said, "Look, here's the video of it," and they say, "Nah, didn't happen." And then somebody goes and they go do something about it. They go, oh my God, but vigilantism. It's the same thing, guys, but you pushed it even further. First, it was you guys are rioting and burning down the cities, and then it was the illegal lockdowns, and then it was one thing after another, and then it was the elections, and you took away their right to vote, and then after you took away their right to vote by stealing the election, you said you're not even going to investigate the fraud, so they couldn't even be held accountable for that. So they have no chance of it being next time. The next time was Georgia. They all sat there. They witnessed it. They saw this. They saw this happen on live TV. I saw the votes flip. I saw the electronic stuff flip, subtracting 5,000 votes from one candidate, adding 5,000 votes to another. And it only ever goes one way. I saw 99 point whatever percent reporting with Loeffler and Purdue up by 3 and it was like 3 and 4 or 2 and 3.5 or whatever percent respectively, which means it's over. And then all of a sudden that denominator gets bloated. Oh, no, not really 1% left reporting. It's actually, and don't give me that whole, it's number of precincts. There is no 1% of precincts. That's not a number, guys. It's total vote. You're telling me that they count it as total vote percentage reporting until suddenly they get to the end. And then not only that, they did the same thing where it's about 10:30 at night, and they need to recalculate. They need to figure out how many more ballots they need to dump into it. And then they said, no, we're going home. And then a couple hours later, they materialized the votes they needed for Warnock and Ossoff in this case. They just didn't do it both at once, because they didn't want to make them too mad. But here it is, guys. Here it is. We saw this. We saw this live. And Democrats, if you guys aren't acknowledging this and at least finding a reasonable explanation, go ahead. Why aren't the machines audited? How come there's not signature audits for these ballot dumps? Prove that this is legitimate, because this doesn't happen for the Republicans. Anywhere this doesn't happen for the Republicans. You'd think if you see a spike like this, you would see like an equal or partial jump. It's not 2-1. It just simply does. If there even is any Republican votes in that mix, that's the question. It's not even. It's like 90% and that would be generous to what the Republicans are given. And then you guys you mock and you don't give the people the explanation for this. If you cannot explain this, if you cannot give a rock solid court proven, not the court rejected it. Again, it's like I went to report the crime to the cops, and the cops said they're not investigating it. Therefore, the crime didn't occur. That's not how that works, guys. And you can only do that so many times before people start taking things into their own hands. People like me, we warned you guys that this was coming. Not that we were going to do anything. It's just that we said, look, what am I going to tell? What are we going to say to these other people who are actually willing to take action? Who are willing to go into the Capitol, maybe break something? They really didn't do much in the Capitol, right? Oh my God, the terrorism. Yeah, okay, sure. Basically, nobody got hurt, and a bunch of people took some selfies. Yeah, terrorism. Sure. This was avoidable. And I feel absolutely no sympathy for how scared people are, or how upset they are, or how the decorum has been violated, or how this isn't democracy. You know what's not democracy? What was going on to that? This was more democratic than what was going on in the chamber beforehand. Because at least these people were, forcing their way into something as opposed to just lying down and taking it. Now, I get it. Ted Cruz, he's got to, he's got to be a Boy Scout. He's got to follow a certain level of procedure. But Ted, you can't tell these people that your plan is to just lose slowly. And it's the formalities are done. They don't care. They're not going to care anymore. All right, because if the vote is not protected, then there's the way we handle this bullshit is going to somehow pay dividends next time, because we're going to know what to do and we'll act more, and we'll say we got it with grace and we get to win hearts and minds. Those people, they don't get that. Because they didn't do this last time on basically for the presidential election. And then they see this happen in Georgia, and then they're done. And then you're going to say that we're not even going to investigate it? Ted, you might be out there saying you want to investigate it. Fine, cool, awesome. But if Congress isn't going to take action, people are going to take action on their own. What are you going to tell them to stop them? That, oh no, let's lose more gracefully this time. Oh, it might be, they might call you an extra double white supremacist rather than the regular white supremacist they call you. I mean, the only threat is what? Legal action? People might go to prison? That's the only threat. People don't. But here's the thing: you've got enough people out here who you've radicalized by taking away their livelihood, by taking away you take away their livelihood, you take away their jobs, you quarantine them, you do all this lockdown bullshit, and these people have nothing, and then you take away their vote, and then what do you expect from that? What do you expect from that? There's no other way that ends. There's simply no other way that ends. And I'm almost embarrassed to seeing the people who are just like pearl clutching at what's going on here. Guys, we told you this is the kind of reaction you're going to get. Now, it's not as bad as it's certainly bigger than what the news would tell you, but it's also not as bad or as violent. Or there was a standoff on Capitol with the Capitol Police. Yeah, but they didn't attack any of the Capitol Police. Oh, some people got hurt. Yeah, but nobody got like beat to death or no Capitol Police need to be extracted to save themselves from the ravaged Trump supporters. The Trump supporters were just worried about basically not getting shot, you know? And that's not fair. Why don't they just follow the law? Well, you guys didn't do this last time for BLM and Antifa and stuff. And now that actual crimes are occurring and you're rewarding them on the Capitol Hill, why are you surprised that those people stepped in and actually took action on their own? Why are you surprised? Because they don't feel like there's going to be a next time. They saw the next time. They saw the preview in Georgia, and they saw what happened. They saw this. They saw the electronic flipping, and they saw that nothing was going to be done about it, and that, the whole thing should have stopped. They should have said, look, this should not have been able to repeat itself, what happened on election night in November 3rd. And now we've seen basically the same thing happen with these unexplained jumps, with the electronic flipping and all this other crap. And in the meantime, the Republicans are all pointing at each other saying, oh, well, you were criticized. Oh, it's Lynn Wood's fault. No, guys. People don't have confidence in the system. And that's not Lynn Wood's fault. And that's not Donald Trump's fault. That's you guys up on Capitol Hill. That's your fault. Why did you not twist Brian Kemp's arm? Why was there not federal? Oh, you can't tell the states how to run their election. Yes, you can. You have to, because it's a civil rights violation. I mean, it's literally saying that the federal government has no role in choosing how the states select their electors. That's completely erroneous. Completely erroneous. In fact, we fought a civil war over this. In fact, we had the 3/5 clause was because the South, the Democrats, they wanted their slaves to count towards their population, but not give them voting rights. So they came to a compromise. This was the 3/5 compromise, right? Which that after a certain amount of time, they said, okay, this is ridiculous. You can't have slaves and then count them towards your population. You have to treat people like Americans who are protected under the Constitution. And what did the Democrats say? They said, no, you can't tell the states how to run their elections. Really? Really? So those people's civil and constitutional rights don't matter? That was the argument. And that is the same argument the Democrats are putting forward right now. And also Republicans like Pat Toomey and Mitch McConnell saying, oh, we can't tell the states how they need to run their elections. No, the federal government does have a role in telling the states how they run their election. They don't dictate to the states, but they can say, hey, you violate the civil rights of your voters with clear and blatant election fraud. In fact, election fraud so much that there's a couple million people outside the building right now who are pretty pissed off about their vote being stolen. It's not that hard. Now, Mike Pence, I get it. He wants to be a Boy Scout. He wants to follow the decorum exactly. But the look on his face after the freaking, basically, he bitched out, and then he heard those riots and stuff. Go watch the procedure. Go look at the look on his face as he was disappearing into his chair. He knew he had fucked up. He might not have known why, but he knew he fucked up. You could see it in his face. He knew this was not going to end because what was the pretense of them respecting his authority? Trump was correct, Mike. Trump was correct because it's not a matter of whether you have the legal authority to decide to reject electors or not. It's fine. You probably do not. Probably the whole you can select the electors thing. That's not really how it works. But what you needed to do is you needed to go out of your way to do that, to then say legally challenge me, and then they'll actually hash it out. That would have at least been something, you know? Yeah, okay, you did something and you said, okay, sue me and we'll figure out what the rules are, because that's what the Democrats do. That's what they do. And if you're not willing to basically play their game and stand up to them just because you want to follow proper decorum, Mike, the government's not legitimate at this point. There's no legitimate electors. These senators are not legitimate. You have a Senate where you've got people in Michigan, Wisconsin, Arizona, Nevada, honestly, Pennsylvania, if going far back enough, Georgia. That's 2, 4, 6, 8. That's like at least eight senators who are in question. That's, or I should say, that's states, 16, right? You can't function like that, guys. And Mike Pence, you should know that it cannot function like that. And those people outside have as much of a right to bitch up a storm and cause problems. And what you should have done if you wanted to avoid that was actually make the Democrats legally challenge you. Actually stand up to them. They don't care. The Democrats don't care. They're going to do by hook or by crook what it takes to keep power. And I get it. You don't want to cross certain lines. It's not like you're going to kill somebody to keep power. It's not like you're going to cheat an election to keep power. Fine. We understand that. Okay? And some people are arguing actually that, the Republicans should just learn how to cheat. If you want to get election reform, suddenly the Republicans have to cheat to win. And there's some truth to that, unfortunately. But I understand you won't do that. It's fine. I wouldn't do that either. But when it comes to basically the legal hurdles to stop this travesty, to stop this whole process so that there's actually an investigation, regardless of what you think actually happened, you have to make them fight you legally. Piece by piece by piece, you have to make them fight for every single inch. Because if you are predictable and you let them do what they're doing, they're going to take the pageantry, they're going to rub it in your face, Mitch McConnell's going to bend over, and people like Pat Toomey are going to sell out the Republic. Mike, what you should know is that Donald J. Trump is the most popular incumbent president in history. He is the most popular Republican in history. Forget the fact of whether you think he's so hated by the Democrats that they somehow got 81 million people to go vote for Joe Biden while he was in his basement. Forget that. If you believe that's somehow the case, fine. But look at this other section here. You don't think that those people aren't going to do everything possible to hold the government accountable, especially when they believe their vote's been taken? You should know better. I don't know who your advisors are, Mike Pence, but you got to fire every single one of them. They're not looking out for your best interest, and they're certainly not looking out for the country's best interest. It's the Surrender Caucus. Mike, here's the thing. If somehow, by some miracle, Trump gets to keep power, he's going to ask you to step down. He has no choice at this point because we've lost confidence. You're not playing the game, Mike. The game has changed. You see this fraud? The game has changed. The social contract has been broken by the Democrats. And it was broken a while ago. But now it's finally come to the point where now it's like literally not just Arizona being stolen, not just Wisconsin being stolen, not just Michigan being stolen, not just Pennsylvania being stolen on off years. No. Now it's all the way down to the court, to the point where you've got a red state like Georgia putting socialists and racists and all these weirdos. That's not the case, Mike. That's not the case. And every Republican who doesn't have their head firmly lodged up their own ass knows that's not the case. And they should know that you can't take away people's vote and then expect them to react civilly. This should have been... They should have seen this coming. President Trump was out there giving a speech to the millions of people who were there, and he wasn't talking to them. They know what's up. He was just trying to basically make them so that they're not completely demoralized. Because then, when you get demoralization, that's when you get like the really spooky stuff happening. But he was talking to them, but mainly his speech was for you guys in Washington. You have to hear those people outside. You have to hear them. Because they're not violent, and they weren't threatening violence. But you take away their vote. What other alternative have you given them? What other alternative have you given them? Don't say, oh, they'll get them, they'll vote next time. No. This was their example of next time. There's not any next time for these people. They know that basically 4 years of a lock, stock, Democrat, Chinese-controlled Senate, House, and White House is going to lead to weapons confiscation and grand transfer of wealth from the United States to these other countries, more Chinese manufacturing, people of Hong Kong, we'll protest. Cool. You protested. Great. And what happened? They ended up in camps. Why? Because they didn't take up arms. Oh, they had their crossbows and they had their shields and they had their... Yeah, well, what are you going to do when the PLA comes kicks your door in? And I got news to you. Americans are different. We don't have the culture of submit and hope, and surrender. That's not how people roll, particularly not people on the right. They're sick. They don't want anything to do with any of this shit. They want to be left alone, and now you're selling them that. They can't even vote for you to leave them alone. You're coming for them. So they're going to take matters into their own hands. That's what they're going... What other option have you given them? What other option have you given them? Right? Here's a good example, right? You've got Antifa, BLM, they're in Portland, and they riot, and they're in Seattle, and they riot, and they burn, and they destroy, and they hurt people, and they're just generally awful communists. There's not that many of them, but they cause enough destruction and enough fear where the politicians said, okay, we'll defund the police. And they did it. And what happened? Did the rioting, the destruction, and all that stop? No. They continued. They continued to act violently because it wasn't about defunding the police. It was about their Marxism. They wanted to destroy the system. They wanted to destroy capitalism or whatever it is that their manufactured enemy is. Racism, white supremacy, whatever it is. They were there to destroy. And you appease them. And the right sits there going, wait a minute. You're going to appease these really violent people who want to destroy the foundations of the republic. And then when you appease them, they still continue the violence and you just basically do nothing. Now Ted Wheeler's crying. Oh, it has to stop. Okay, pal. You built that, just so you know. And the right's going to sit there and they're going to say, all right, well, look, we're not like that. We're not going to threaten violence or mob action or any of that kind of stuff. We're going to go vote, and that's how we're going to win, because that's how you win. You democratically elect, you vote, you campaign, you stick to your caucus. I mean, Trump's got, 97% approval within the Republican Party, and look by the number of votes he got. And that's actually under because there was the stuff that was switched electronically. But then you said, no. We know you guys were right and nonviolent and peaceful, and we mocked you, and we even called you all kinds of names when you just were peacefully protesting the lockdowns. Now that you voted, we're going to take that away from you. And then when you call the cheaters out on it, we're going to we're just going to call you conspiracy theorists or whatever. We're never going to answer your questions, and then we're going to do it again to you right in front of your eyes a couple months later in Georgia to make sure that basically, instead of at least a lame duck president, which Biden would have been, that there's basically no stopping the commie train. And then you're going to tell them, accept that. What do you think that does? That does that demoralize a certain amount of Republicans? Yes, it does. Lots of people go home. My parents, they don't want to watch the news. I don't blame them. It's disgusting. Do you feel like voting if your vote doesn't count? No. You feel like staying home. Why would you even get engaged with politics? They don't care. You're just going to look up for number one, and you're going to just leave it all in the dustbin because there's nothing you can do to improve your life because your vote doesn't matter. But what does that do to somebody who's at the absolute rock bottom, right? You've taken their job. You've ruined their life with the lockdown. You got this fascist mask shit going on. You've called them every name under the book. And then when they go out and they vote, and then you take that away from them, what other options do they have at that point? They're going to look and see what BLM and Antifa have been doing and what the left has been doing, and they're going to go apply the same tactics. This is a taste. This is a little cherry, a little nip of the cornucopia full of tricks Antifa and BLM and the left have done over the past 25, 30, really 50, 55 years probably. I mean, you could argue going back all the way to the freaking 30s. And I would say it's connected. But it's that this is just a taste of the type of tactics. And I think what's so overwhelming is I don't think you guys realize just how many of these people there are. You don't get that many millions of people showing up in DC. That was not the Pussy March with the pink hats, or BLM, or Antifa, or the anti-Trump stuff, or even the March for Life, which you guys always ignore, or the Million Man March. No. This was magnitudes larger than that. Magnitudes. Now, you can stick your head in the sand and pretend that every single one of those people are just crazy, wild white supremacists. Or you can just wake up and realize you have awakened something because you've pissed off those 75 million people. Wouldn't you want to know? If you're the Democrats, right? And maybe you don't believe in this whole fraud thing, or you're like, why? I don't want to investigate it because I don't believe it. I believe 80 million. Well, wouldn't you want to know that there's 75 plus million people out there, yes or no, true or false, and possibly more of people who don't agree with you, who did not consent to you governing over them? Wouldn't you want to know that? That's why accurate election numbers are important, because not only does it inform the loser of something, it also informs the winner. If you barely skate by, you don't get the mandate that you think. You have to now negotiate with that other half of the people, otherwise they're not going to engage with you, and they're going to cause all kinds of hell, and they're going to campaign against you from when you start. You have to engage with these people. And that was why Trump did so good with minorities and so good with all these other demographics, because he engaged. I mean, was it Ice Cube? He's no Trump guy. He's an anti-Semite. He's got a lot of things going on. But what did he say? He said, contact the Biden campaign. They said, after the election, we'll talk to you. Contacts the Trump campaign, and they say, okay, let's talk. And they work some things out. And then the Trump campaign says, we like some of your ideas. We're going to put some money on the table. Is he voting for Trump? No, probably not. I don't know. Maybe he did. But the difference is that he knew you represent a sizable faction. We hear what are the things you want. They're not completely incompatible with the things we want. Let's work something out. It's the same thing with the police brutality stuff. There's a lot in common the conservatives have with the far left. And this is funny that I'm seeing these people come out and they're like, now that the cops are attacking the conservatives, suddenly the thin blue. It's like we've always had that in common. It's always been a yin yang type thing. Back the blue, the thin blue line doesn't mean basically eat the jackboot. It's never meant that. And there's some people who are like that. I should say the people who are like that tend to be more manipulative, like a Kamala Harris type character. But the conservatives with the Gadsden flag in one hand and a back the blue in the other hand, that's a delicate balance. They know that. They understand that stop and frisk might be an issue, and there may be better ways to police the community, and there may be some rights being violated, and there may be other things that we can agree on to basically get a better relationship between essentially law enforcement and these communities that seem to be having these issues. We don't want crime to continue. We don't want to just legalize crime the way San Francisco does it. But there's a lot to be had. But that was squandered. No. Can't talk to the conservatives about that. That was squandered. That instead, you guys burned down the cities, and the Democrats ran away with it. And the communists were like, oh my God, evil. Everybody who doesn't support this is a racist. And that's where the conversation stopped. That's where you get the people who are tweeting about, like, just freaking out about these people in D.C. acting like they're white supremacists or whatever. It's like, you guys have no idea. And it's because it's not our fault. We extended the hand. We said, look, we're in charge now, but we want to hear what you have to say so we can find some sort of common ground here, because we don't all disagree on every single thing. I mean, look at the freaking the stimulus check stuff, right? Donald Trump saying the whole time, cut the fat. If you're going to lock down, cut the checks, let people basically, at least, if you're going to lock them down, you have to at least give them something in return. Nope, didn't want to hear that. No, it was all or nothing. And the Democrats, all they did was bitch about the president, And then the Republicans eventually, they caved. And they said, oh, well, I guess we're just not going to do that because some reason, right? But there was common ground there. I mean, you had AOC and Donald Trump on the same page for a second. AOC made the big mistake of saying, well, why is all this other stuff in the bill? Couldn't we just pass a single bill that said the $2,000 for everybody? Yes, we could. In fact, if we were going to do something of such that wasn't basically just, we should have done unlock down everything, but if you're going to do something like that, that's the way to do it. That way special interest doesn't get hands in it. That way it's not caught up in litigation for and development, bill development, for lack of a better term, for months and months and months. And then what comes out is $600 for you and $800 million for the Pakistanis. We have common ground, but you guys don't. You didn't want to have it. You didn't want to hear it. So Democrats, see that crowd outside? See those people who took over the Capitol like that? Oh, you think they were armed? You think that was a show of force? You have absolutely no idea. Because if these people that you've betrayed and you've belittled and you've stolen their vote of, if they basically, if just a fraction of those people go as violent as Antifa is, as violent as these communist insurgents are, you guys are going to be in for a world of hurt. And we can't stop it. The peaceful conservatives, the guys, us who want to find alternative methods to somehow work this shit out, we can't stop those people. There's not an argument we have that to stop them. And that should scare the shit out of you. It really should. Because it scares the shit out of me. I'm afraid for what that leads to. Does that work out for the right? I don't know. Does it work out for the left? I don't know. Where does that go? Where does that lead us? I don't know. But it leads us to violence. And this is why. Because if you don't recognize their vote, if you don't present yourself as at the very least concerned over their basically the fact that they don't find you legitimate, they don't find the election results legitimate, if you don't at least acknowledge that and present evidence and present, I mean, come on, guys. Donald Trump got elected, and you guys investigated him for, 3.5, almost 4 years, because you wanted to, pretend that the Russians helped him somehow, and it turned out none of that was true, right? You should be satisfied. And you know what? The Republicans were satisfied. They bitched out. They let it go on too long. I think that I don't think they handled it all that well. But it's over, guys. You had nothing to say. We saw all the evidence. We saw everything. And finally, you had to accept it. He was already president for 3.5 years before you guys even bothered wrapping up the investigation. But that should give you some kind of solace that, hey, we've proven that this guy, he was not assisted by the Russians. Okay? Can we move on with our lives? But you guys won't give us fucking 10 days to look into this bullshit. How do you expect people to react to this? How do you expect people to react to this? You can ignore them. You can stick your fingers in your ears and pretend that's just white supremacists and somehow the government's going to crack down and stop these. You guys have absolutely no idea. You have no idea. And you're doing a disservice to your fellow Democrats by not looking at the number of people who were there today and yesterday, really, and probably tomorrow, and just see that sheer number, right? You guys like to talk about crowd size. You guys like to underplay how many people were tuning into Trump's inauguration. And you guys like to ignore the fact that Trump's rallies and shit were like magnitudes larger than anything Joe Biden ever got. They were larger than Obama's rallies. People don't like to admit that. But you guys can't put the blinders on for that for too long, because you're going to be surrounded. If you look at conservatives or Trump supporters as the enemy, you are doing yourself no service by denying the numerical superiority they have. And guess what, guys? Faking it, that's not gonna cut it. Because warm bodies get stuff done. Ballot dumps don't. Ballot dumps might give you the keys to power, but that's not gonna make things. You're not going to be able to enforce even what you're trying to do. All right. Sure, some Republicans will fold like a wet blanket, Mitch McConnell, but those guys are not long for this world, because or I should say, they're not long for their positions of power because, one, a lot of them aren't seeking re-election. Two, you guys are never going to vote for them. It's not like you guys are going to prop them up for controlled opposition. And three, they're going to get primaried or they're going to get retired. At this point, why would you not vote third party as a Trump supporter, a Patriot Party, or whatever, if somebody like Pat Toomey or Mitch McConnell's on the ticket? Why would you not do that? Because the outcome is the same. It's just the difference is the Democrat, at least, at least they're more honest about it. You don't have the false hope that they're going to somehow do the right thing at the last second. You guys should know this. You guys should know how many people you're up against. We saw Antifa. We saw your protest. We saw you guys show up and vote. And we realized that there's a shitload of people who really, really, really fucking hate our guts. We know. We're trying to work on that. But you guys refuse to acknowledge that we even exist. And that's not going to end well. That's not going to end well. So, I told you so. Right? That's kind of what this video is about. It's an I told you so. But at the same time, it's a legitimate, like, guys, this can get much worse, and it can get much worse much faster. And you have no idea. And until you address this, it ain't going to stop. Because I have no argument to stop those people. I have no rhetorical argument. You have taken the rhetorical argument for peace out of my arsenal, and I have nothing I can say to people who have been disenchanted and who believe their votes have been stolen. I have nothing I can say to them. Right? Antifa, BLM, their violence was rewarded. What am I gonna say to tell somebody who says, yeah, well, we're gonna take up those same tactics? What am I gonna say? Oh, it's impolite. Oh, we don't do that because we're conservatives. Is that really what I'm gonna? Why? What are they gonna say? They're gonna point at that. And they're gonna say, yeah, what are we gonna do? Vote? The vote doesn't matter. We have to try something else. And some of those people are going to choose some drastic shit, and it's gonna be scary. And I can't stop it. I can't stop it. People like me who are peaceful, looking to talk, we can't stop what is coming. We're warning you. We are begging you. You have no idea what is coming if you continue this path. And I guess when it comes, I'm just going to shrug my shoulders. What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to do? Right? Am I supposed to just bend? I'm not gonna roll over. You guys didn't win the election, right? I share a lot of the same sentiments. It's you just want us to roll over and die. That's what it is, and people just don't do that. You should know that. And fight the Taliban for fucking 20 years in Afghanistan. You think people just roll over and die because things get tough? You have no idea. You just don't understand the character of the people you're up against. We understand the character of the left. We understand. We know. We've dealt with you guys. We saw what happened with Antifa. We saw what happened under Bush. We know what the Democrats are about. But you guys are in absolute denial about what this new breed of Trump supporting Republican, whatever you want to call it, patriot. You're in total denial about it. And if you remain in denial about it, it's gonna do a lot more damage to you than it's gonna do to us. Because holy shit. You think what happened today in the Capitol was terrorism and awful? just know that's a fraction of the people you've pissed off. A fraction of the people you've pissed off. That was a work day. Imagine what would have happened if it was a weekend. You guys have no idea how good you have it. But straighten this shit out, because if you don't, it's gonna... Man. Bad news. Bad news.